Morphternoon folks, Mark here, and welcome to the sofa. And a warm welcome back to these tree revenants and their extra sticky stick. I guess we should paint them. That is what we do, right? So, why not join me at the painting table, and let's get started. Having looked it up, I'm vaguely confident that these are ancestral spirits of the forest brought back for angry, splintery vengeance. I'm going to try and get a winter feel on the base, with the exposed flesh looking like spring growth bursting out of the dead bark. Not my best priming job, almost missed the entire underside. With the models separated and fully primed, I did an exhaustive study of spring foliage. By which I mean looked at a couple of pictures, then made it up. Stuff realism, I wanted some vibrant greens by the bark and on the extremities. Working up to, well, a pale wood colour, unsurprisingly, around the shoulders and face. Using pale flesh tones helped warm it all up. For the grooves, eyes, and magic belly button thing, I used white as a base, and yellow ink for vibrancy. Then the challenge was replicating that on the other three. Does usually help if I clean all the mould lines off. And, of course, maximum contrast on the faces. Motivation was lacking, so I switched over to the base for some easy progress. I'm trying not to let it get too colourful and warm, but it does need to look like cold, wet dirt. Which is, you know, usually brown. Still, I got the basics down and figured I'd add some foliage before messing with it more. I had some leaves, but they were rather autumnal, which meant staining some paper, drying it off, and punching out another batch of leaves. Only, to add the leaves, I probably needed to paint the tree bark. To paint the tree bark, I needed to know how the models would look. So, we're back to the revenants then, because order of operations is a thing. I started with an earth brown, then decided everything would look better with moss glued on. After redoing that earth tone, I spent the rest of the time muting it with purple, blue-black, and off-white. scruffy, minimal blending and some striping hopefully helps the bark effect. Guess I was bound to miss a leaf or two. Kept messing with this slowly until I had to switch again to paint the pillar above this one's head. Dull stone at first, but I threw in some blue and green to try for a copper ore feel. Something that could have been found in a forest. Then it was back to bark. Again. Which was getting boring, even when I switched to painting the base for a bit. At last, though, we returned to adding grass and leaves to the barren wilderness. Even started adding the first layers of water, before realising that I needed the models in place to do that properly. I did make sure to cut the bases free through the gel though. After a bit more bark, felt never ending, I realised I had no plan for the leader. She's more vine than bark, so I'd blend some colours over the brown. And to stick with the cold tones, I picked red. A little green at the top. Some highlights. And that'll do. Alright, let's move on to the details. Never thought I'd be glad to reach that stage. The hair would help make their upper bodies brighter if it was white. A few glazes of green on random strands and at the tips to help match it up. The biggest thing left was the weapons, which looked way too manufactured. a little texture gel, some more bark painting, they're looking much more natural. Even built a little nature arrow with a plaster rock tip. Curled leaves made for more thematic fletching. For the metal parts, I figured I may as well do more copper ore. Only this time, as well as using brown, blue and turquoise, I added some copper. Might as well have some metal on the weapons. Best way to paint this loincloth? With a pair of clippers, of course. Much better. Alright, some cords, the horns, in shades of green of course, some gems, and we're still not done. Ah! 3 insects to go. One on the leader, which I kept darker than the model. The one on the branch, pale and muted so it's not distracting. And the one at the front, who practically ended up blended into the base for the same reason. From the safety gear, you may be able to guess that I'm adding snow. In the form of glass powder. It's awful to work with, and cleaning the excess off involves going outside, because I don't want that loose in here. But I do like how it looks. Drains a bit more warmth out of the scene. Right, let's stick some leaves onto the revenants' branches. Tie a bowstring on. Okay, not the right knots, but it's invisible thread, so cut me a little slack. And stick everyone to their bases. Okay. Very last thing was to black out the edges of the bases to hide the mess, and varnish it to look nicer and last longer. Oh, right, and then put the rest of the water effects on. There's always another thing to do. Now, at long last, with way more effort than planned, we are done. Not bad. Actually came out pretty much how I planned it. I reckon the contrast of bark and spirit worked out nicely. And a surprise winner, the copper ore stone, might be my favourite bit. The snow is decent, but I think I'll work on refining that in a future thing. Also a little glad it's over, because wow, this took longer than planned. But ain't that the way it goes sometimes? Enough of my rambling though. What do you think? Worth the wait? Let me know, and maybe I'll see you next time.